Today is a quick review about slope and how to find slope, what slope looks like, and how to graph using slope. So first of all, slope is rise over run. Rise is the change in your y values, so you subtract your y values on top. And run is the change in your x values, so you subtract your x values on the bottom. So if we look at A, our x's are -2 and 3, our y's are 0 and 1. And if you need to label this x1, y1, x2, y2, you absolutely can. But what you need to do is subtract your y's on top, so 1 minus 0. Subtract your x's on the bottom in the same direction that you subtracted your y's. So because I did 1 minus 0, second point minus first point, I must also do 3 minus a -2. And that's the one thing that I really wanted to touch on today. Slope formula uses subtraction. So if there's a negative value for your second number, you do have to do minus a negative. All right, 1 minus 0 is 1. 3 minus a -2 is +5, so the slope of this line is 1/5. I would like you to take a moment and try to find the slope for B, C, and D. If you're watching the video, pause the video, try these three on your own. For B, we end up with 2 minus 2 on the top, which is 0. What is 0 divided by something? 0. This can be something that's hard to remember. When is it 0? When is it undefined? So if you don't remember which is which, grab your calculator. 0 divided by 3 will give you 0. Let's skip down to D. 1 minus 4 is -3. 3 minus 3 is 0. You cannot divide by 0. So the 0 can't be on the bottom. That one would be undefined. Or think back to elementary school when you learned division using like little counters and you had to split the counters into different piles. If I have 3 cookies and I have to divide those 3 cookies into 0 groups, I can't make the cookies disappear. I mean, I suppose I could eat them, but that wouldn't be doing math. That would just be eating cookies. But if I have 0 cookies in my hand and I need to split these 0 cookies up among 3 of you, the 3 of you are going to get 0 cookies because I have 0 cookies to split up. So if you think about it in those terms, it kind of makes sense. You can split nothing into 3 and still have nothing. You can't split something into nothing. And C, -1 minus 4 is -5. 1 minus 0 is 1, so that is a slope of -5. Positive slope rises. That means from left to right, it goes up. Like you're reading a book left to right, you'd be climbing a hill if it was a positive slope. Negative slope falls from left to right. So as you're reading the book left to right, you would be sliding down the slope. A line with 0 slope is horizontal, and a line with undefined slope is vertical. Moving right along. You have a picture on the next slide. It's a little bit more colorful on my screen. You need to identify which line has each slope. So take a moment and see if you can match each slope to the appropriate line. A is the only slope that's positive, and the only line that looks like it has positive slope is line 2. And if you look at it, up 3, right 2, that definitely matches. The horizontal line is line 3. 0 slope has horizontal. 0 slope is horizontal. The next 2 are negative. -2 is going to be steeper than -2/3. So line 1 is -2, or you could check it down to right 1. And line 4 down to right 3. That matches the slope of -2/3. The most important part about slope-intercept form is that your y-intercept shows where you begin on your y-axis. You always have to start on your y-axis. So this one, our y-intercept is 1. We would start at 1 on the y-axis. Your slope is 2. So on your assignment, it's going to give you an equation and ask you to identify the slope and the y-intercept. So you would say m is 2, b is 1. To use a slope of 2, you would go up 2, and then what? Right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, and so on. And then you would draw in your line. On your assignment, most of the problems are going to be just identify the slope and the y-intercept. 3 problems I'm going to ask you to actually graph it. So last example, this is more like what you're going to see on your assignment. The equations are not in slope-intercept form. So first you have to get them into slope-intercept form and then identify the slope and the y-intercept. So what should we do in A to get y by itself? Okay, really the shortcut is to subtract y on both sides, because then you have 2x minus 3 equals negative y. To get rid of the negative in front of your y, you divide everything by negative 1, which really just takes the opposite of every single term. And you can write it equals y, or you can flip that around. Y equals negative 2x plus 3. So on your assignment, you would want to write this as part of your answer. And then you'd want to write that your slope, m, is negative 2. Your y-intercept, b, is 3. That would be the 2 parts of your answer. The last, well, 3 of the last 4 problems you have to graph. So then you'd put it on the graph. How about part B? What do we do in part B to get this in slope-intercept form? Minus 5x. So we have 6y equals negative 5x plus 30. Divide everything by 6. And then you would identify your slope is negative 5, 6. Your y-intercept is 5. Word of warning when you're graphing a negative slope. So I'm actually going to graph this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start at 5. By going down 5, you've used the negative. You would then need to go right 6. So a negative slope, you would go down 5 and then still move to the right 6. If you move down and then left, you've used 2 negatives, and 2 negatives makes it a positive. That would make it a positive slope instead of a negative slope. So make sure when you are graphing negative slope that you only use the negative once. Down uses the negative, then you would move right. All right, your assignment for 4.4 book assignment starts on page 195, and you are doing number 8, 10, 12, 18 through 28 evens, and number 54. On these first 3, you are not going to graph. On 18 through 28 even, 18 through 22 don't graph. 24 through 28, those are the ones that you will need to graph. And I have a piece of graph paper to give you that has 3 graphs on it. And then I think number 54 is just like that picture where you're picking out which line represents which slope. So only 24 through 28, those are the 3 problems. 24, 26, and 28, those are the 3 problems that you will need to graph.